We got a Bobby Lashley sit-down interview, my God, with Renee Young. I can't crap on this because I was on the show a week or two ago, wasn't I? I was talking about why have they not done anything with Bobby Lashley? We have not heard Bobby Lashley say one word on television since he came back. What's his motivation? Why is he back? What makes him tick? Well, this week they listened to the fans, I guess. I don't know, but they gave us a sit-down pre-recorded interview with Bobby Lashley and Renee Young. And he talked about not his motivation, why he's back necessarily, although I guess maybe it ties into the theme of family in a way, but we didn't really get any sort of real explanation of why he's back, what he's going after. He talked about his sisters. He's got 3 sisters. His oldest sister, he says, used to chase him around the house with a broom. Another sister named Jessica carried around a white towel when she was younger, and the towel got really dirty and really gnarly, and then one day, I guess at school, I don't know, a bully took the towel away from her. And that's when Bobby stepped in, he got the towel back, and he proceeded to shove that dirty, nasty towel down the bully's throat. His third sister was in the military and carried her helmet with her. And one day Lashley, I guess, tried to play a prank on her. He tried to steal the helmet, and she beat him with it. And so Renee tries to end the interview. They finally have reached the conclusion of the interview. She's about to wrap it up, and Lashley interrupts her. He puts his finger up and interrupts her and says, "No, wait a minute. Can I just say one more thing? I want to say hello to my sisters." And they zoom in on his face. He looks dead in the camera, and he reads off, each of their names, and he just goes, "I love you." I just sat there thinking, okay, that's one of the creepier interviews I've seen in a while, but all right. I will say this, though. I will give them credit for doing the sit down because I think we need more of that. I wasn't expecting this to be the subject matter that was covered, but A, we got the sit down, which is a step in the right direction. B, the video package. They did show a video package before the interview. It sort of led into the interview, and they had highlights of Lashley from his first run in WWE and, his time as an amateur wrestler and talked about him being an MMA fighter. And I thought the video package was very well done. So I thought the video was really, really great. The interview itself was just very bizarre. Even some of the language. There was another line in here where he says, he's talking about his family, and he goes, "Well, now I have an extended family. It's called the WWE Universe, and we're going to have a lot of fun together." He says this, and I'm just thinking to myself, it sounds like Lashley is getting ready for the biggest orgy in the history of orgies, of which I want no part. But I'm like, all right, that's kind of cringeworthy. That's definitely a scripted line, but I don't know. All right. I was just completely taken aback by this interview. I remember Lashley in TNA, and I know that not everybody when they come over to WWE is a carbon copy of what they were and who they were in TNA. But I gotta be honest with you, okay? For every Samoa Joe and somebody like that who, no matter where he goes, Joe just comes off as a total badass, and you could argue, should he have, lost to Roman Reigns at Backlash? And the answer is no. But forget that. Joe, when he comes out, he's got that aura about him in WWE, just like he did in TNA, and he's doing very well for himself. But for every Samoa Joe, there is a Bobby Roode. Or in this case, so far, there is a Bobby Lashley. Now, Lashley hasn't been back for that long, but, he's been back a little bit of time. And in TNA, Lashley was the Destroyer, right? And then he had the MMA thing going with, what was that guy's name? Lambert, right? Dan Lambert and stuff. And I mean, by that point, I wasn't really watching much of Impact, but I sort of tapered off right around the time when Lashley was still, and not because of Lashley, but I just completely lost faith and interest in the product and gave them so many chances that I just gave up on them. But Lashley as the champion was actually really good. And he had the chance to sort of show more personality during that run than I ever saw him show in WWE. And I was enjoying his work there. And he really did. He came off as sort of a badass type of guy that you didn't want to mess with. And I saw this interview, and I don't know where they're going with this. I am curious. I'm a little worried. There was nothing badass about him that came off here, but maybe they're, just using this to show his personal side. Let him talk about family. Maybe next week, They didn't say anything, I don't think, about a part 2. I was kind of thinking, well, maybe they could do a part 2 next week and they can focus on, his wrestling career, or maybe they incorporate some talk about his MMA pursuits. And then they've done this before. I mean, they did it with Goldust many years ago, or Dustin Rhodes. They did it with Mankind, where it's like a 2 or 3 part interview series over a period of weeks where you really get to learn more about the person. I hope this is not the only segment like this that they do with him, because if it is, then what a waste. All this time, they finally sit him down to thank his sisters and say, I love you. I got an email from a listener this week, Kevin, who wanted to know, he also was completely flabbergasted by this segment, and he wanted to know if this was just a case of WWE not really paying attention to what's going on, or being too busy to pay close enough attention to a segment like this. Did it slip through the cracks? How could this end up on TV this way? I think, or I'd like to think, that this is part of a longer story that they have only just started to tell. Because it's true, we tend to get, and I'll speak for myself on this, but we can get ahead of ourselves sometimes. If we see a segment that doesn't make sense or that is completely horrendous, but maybe it's part of a longer story they're trying to tell. Sometimes that story doesn't get finished because they have ADD booking. They'll lose interest. They'll move on to something else. We've seen lots of start and stops. We've seen lots of storylines that never get tied up. It's very frustrating. Maybe in this case, it's part of a longer story that they have in mind for this guy. Maybe there is a method to the madness. But if not, then I think Kevin may be onto something here. Because, I would use the 3 strikes rule from baseball here with Lashley, right? So I've called for them to let the man speak. Let him show some of that personality I know he's got in there somewhere. And so, like I said, I'll use the 3 strikes analogy. This was strike 1. This segment was a swing and a miss. No big deal. Won't kill him. Just because he went on and on about his sisters. He, it was interrupting Renee Young and everything to talk about how much he loved them. It was fine. It's one interview, one swing and a miss is fine. Strike 2, I would start to be a little concerned. Strike 3, and you're out. If this is not part of some kind of longer story, or meant as a way to introduce all of his sisters to WWE as some kind of badass trio of women's wrestlers, maybe that's part of the plan. And if this guy is still cutting awkward promos in a few weeks, then you're out. That's it. The 3 strikes rule. You can apply the same rule with Roman Reigns. Not his promos per se, but just the different attempts to get him cheered and get him accepted by the mass audience. Only with Roman, he's gotten about 30 swings. And they've all been foul balls. We're all sort of, I think, with Roman Reigns just waiting for that one at-bat to finally end. Just, I don't even care. Hit a home run. Hit a home run, strike out. I don't care. Just put the goddamn ball in play already and move on down the batting order. That's kind of how I look at that whole situation.